Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for.
Well, it's always fun to talk about the winner. As I often say, the more interesting story is regularly in the losing locker room. And I think the more interesting story in this case is Kentucky, because 2 weeks after Mark Pope's doing good. Mark Pope had Rick Pitino at Big Blue Madness, which I talked about on social media. We won't get into that today. By the way, after thinking about it, I don't think it was as big of a deal as I made it out to be. Not Mark Pope. Mark Stoops. Let's get back to football, because after Mark Stoops got probably the signature win of his entire era 2 weeks ago at Ole Miss, he loses this game. And I'll tell you, I think Vandy's better than people give it credit for, but this just feels like another step towards him transparently not being back next year. Not saying he's getting fired. Does he look for a way out? Does he step aside? I don't know, but it was really bad. And for Kentucky fans, I get why you're frustrated. Now, again, I think Vandy is good, but it's not just that you lost to Vandy. It is the manner in which you did it in this game. Off of a bye, when you're supposed to be mentally fresh and physically fresh, what happens? 12 penalties for over 100 yards of penalty yardage. That is not acceptable, ever, under any circumstances. I'm sorry, it's not okay. 12 penalties, 100 penalty yards is not going to get the job done against anybody. It is not acceptable. Brock Vanderbilt clearly has regressed from 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you blame the OC, you blame Mark Stoops, you blame him. I don't know. Just did not look good. I know it wasn't like he was Patrick Mahomes against Ole Miss, but he was confident, made plays with his legs, made plays with his arms. Made plays with his arm, This game, not so much. 15 to 25 passing, 158 yards. Just not getting the job done. 15 to 26 passing, not getting the job done. By the way, I thought it was also interesting. Gavin Wimsatt, a few weeks ago, made some plays with his legs. He did not appear in this game. So it's bad, but here is where it gets concerning. I guess Gavin Wimsatt did have a couple rushes. I apologize. Before Kentucky fans get mad at me in the mentions, he did have a couple rushes. They don't really stand out. But the problem with Kentucky, let's get back to Kentucky. Let's focus on this. Problem is pretty straightforward, okay? This is continuing a trend.
I want to welcome a new sponsor to the Aaron Torres pod, Blue Chew. Fellas, remember back in the day when you were always ready to go? Well, things change. You got a lot on your mind. Your football team isn't very good. Well, here's the good news. That's where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew is an online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but at a fraction of the cost and in chewable form. To get started, it's so easy. Just go to BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online. No awkward trip to the doctors, no waiting at the pharmacy, no stink eyes, no raised eyebrows, nothing. Thing is, though, I know a lot of you are probably wondering, Torres, does it actually work? Do you think I need to try it? Well, here's the deal. Try it for a month for free, and I think there will be no turning back, all right? You'll love it. Your partner is going to love it. Your football team may stink, but you'll be rocking like the 85 Bears between the sheets. So go ahead, try it out, and here is the great news. We have a special offer for listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. You can try Blue Chew for free when you use the code Torres at checkout. All you got to do is pay $5 in shipping. Go to BlueChew.com, use promo code Torres at checkout. You get Blue Chew for free for a free month, and you only have to pay $5 shipping. Again, visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. Thank you to Blue Chew for sponsoring the Aaron Torres podcast.
Trend of two things that are absolutely going in the wrong direction for a guy in Mark Stoops that had a crazy approval rating as of like 3 years ago. You know, Kentucky, in the Mark Stoops era with this loss, first of all, this is absolutely unacceptable. I'm sorry, even in the SEC, even for Mark Stoops. Mark Stoops is now 5-8 after bye weeks, okay? Again, bye weeks are where you're supposed to get right, where you're supposed to figure things out. By the way, what happened to the Bama body blow stuff, right? It used to be you played Bama, The next week you're exhausted. Vandy coming off an emotional win. They got to go on the road into a tough environment where the fans showed up, and deservedly so. The fans are delivering in a way that the team isn't. You lose the game. By the way, this stat is just stunning. I don't care if it's the SEC. You know, Kentucky is now 2-10 in its last 12 SEC home games. You can see it on the bottom of the screen there. That is unbelievable. I'm sorry. You don't play Georgia every week. By the way, you played Georgia tougher than you played Vandy. 2-10 in your last 12 road games. And so I've seen some of the response from Kentucky fans, and I understand the frustration. You pay a lot of money. In this NIL era, Mark Stoops never stops asking for NIL money. But you pay money for tickets. You pay money to drive. You pay money to park. You pay money for food. You pay money to tailgate. At a certain point, there are baseline expectations that Mark Stoops is not meeting, and I think it sets up a very interesting what is to come in the next couple months. Because I look at Mark Stoops, even after the game, Mark Stoops kind of went to the podium. He looks beat up. He looks tired. And I'll be honest, like, I'm not even here to necessarily crush the guy, but even his, quotes and thoughts and this and that, it's starting to sound redundant, isn't it? It's starting to sound like pretty much everything he says after every loss. What did he say after this one? Oh, nobody's more mad about this than I am. I understand where the fans are coming from. Well, why don't you do something about it? Why don't you make a difference? Because to me, I just don't think that there is a situation where that is excusable, that performance. And I don't want to say he doesn't care, but he just looks like he's just over it. And so again, I'm not saying he's going to get fired. I understand how contract works. I understand how buyouts work. I understand you can't just fire him. But is this a situation where he finds another job like A&M where he can maybe get out the side door? Maybe Iowa finally opens up. Maybe one of those Big Ten jobs opens up. I don't know. Or maybe he just steps aside and retires, takes a year or two off. His brother did. His brother made tens of millions of dollars and was just like, I'm done with this. So I just look at this and I do feel like I do wonder, is it a situation where he could be out after the year? By the way, I know Kentucky fans already know who they want as their replacement. John Summerall, of course, at Tulane, previously at Troy, played at Kentucky, coached at Kentucky. Don't know if it's going to happen, but I just, we see this in sports sometimes. We saw it with Calipari last year at the same school. At a certain point, guys just get tired of a job and you just feel like you reach a point where it can't keep going on the way that it has. Feels like we're getting dangerously close to that at Kentucky. With the loss, by the way, Kentucky now falls to 3-3, 1-3 in the SEC. You got to go to Florida this weekend. And I think that's the other disappointing part. And we talked about this after you beat Ole Miss, is that after you beat Ole Miss, you're 3-2, and you have a very manageable part of the schedule with Vandy at home, at Florida where you've had success, and Auburn at home. That could have been 6-2, and back in the top 25. Now you're 3-3, coming off a loss to Vandy. You still got Tennessee. You still got a couple other tough games on the schedule, most notably at Texas. And it's just tough. It's just tough. But watching that game, watching the fans' reaction, and I think it's justified, Kentucky fans, so that's not a criticism. But you watch the fans' reaction, you watch Mark Stoops after the game. That does not feel like a guy to me that has 7-8 more years in this job. I think he's tired. I think somehow, some way he gets out after this year.